Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the mayor's report. And before we take up our two items of business under the mayor's report, I wanted to make a few remarks. As you'll notice, not too difficult to not notice, we are still meeting remotely. And that's because the Recover Illinois guidance in phase 3 still places an assembly limit of 10 people. This month, we'll continue to meet using the virtual platform, but I'm hopeful that in phase 4, which hopefully will come by the end of June, we can begin to meet in person in the village boardroom. You'll also notice that there's no agenda item to discuss a resolution to the governor asking him to consider modification to the Restore Illinois plan. Events have simply overtaken and rendered moot the resolution. All 4 major regions of the state were able to advance to phase 3 on May 29th. To the extent folks were concerned that Chicago statistics would hinder our region, excuse me, from moving forward, the averaging of improved health measures throughout the region worked in our favor. The city of Chicago, being concerned that its numbers are not where the rest of the region is, has elected to set its own rules in addition to the state's for a slower entry into phase 3, which for them will begin tomorrow. In addition, welcome modifications, which encourage al fresco restaurant dining, facilitate a partial reopening of our restaurants in phase 3, and we're pleased that so many have chosen to avail themselves of the opportunity. The state's metrics for all 4 regions continue to show excellent improvement. I'm sure we're all looking forward to entering phase 4 by the end of June. Sadly, the anxiety and depression of being in a long health-related isolation have now devolved into despair and fear in the wake of the criminal death of George Floyd. I and my colleagues on the board and village staff are horrified and share in Chief Koziol's message and commitment to respect and dignity for all, instinctive use of de-escalation strategies, engagement and constructive partnerships, and recognition and training to overcome racial bias. I was happy to learn that the volunteer members of our Community Engagement Committee met yesterday, and I believe we'll be creating some important topic-driven dialogue opportunities for our community in the near future. Some have likened the current atmosphere to the Democratic Convention of 1968. In my own memory, Dr. King's 1966 Chicago residency and neighborhood marches of the Chicago Freedom Movement are more apropos. I can remember heated dinner table conversations regarding which neighborhoods would be targeted by the marches, the head-on racial tension and fear, the threats of violence. As a high school student growing up in the northwest side of Chicagoland and attending Catholic schools, I had little context for this hate because I didn't really encounter any Black people in our day-to-day lives. I do recall being shocked when one of my friends reported back in 1963 that her family had seen Blacks-only drinking fountains on a trip to the South. And that news was so shocking that I still remember that first day of 8th grade to this day. Well, my circle of friends and experiences has certainly broadened since then, and I've learned a little bit about, although never experienced, what it feels like to grow up and live while Black, to be put under a microscope every day simply because of the color of my skin and the stereotypes that come with it. You may know that for many years in my business career, I worked for Frank Clark, the prominent and esteemed African-American chairman of ComEd. I'm a Leadership Greater Chicago Fellow since 1995, and I've participated in numerous discussions with my Black colleagues who are tired of having to have the talk with their sons and daughters, and who are tired of being stereotyped. Dr. King lived in Chicago 54 years ago, yet we're still fighting the same 400-year-old battles to recognize the individual humanity of our Black brothers and sisters. And now, as we come to terms with the systemic factors leading to George Floyd's murder, make no mistake, we're being gaslighted. Peaceful protesters and their assemblies are being hijacked in ways that are dangerous to the very foundations of the United States of America. Antifa, anarchists, white supremacists, foreign influencers, criminals, and opportunistic hooligans. sometimes disguised as what they are not, are using the cover of the peace and justice seekers to their own evil purpose, perhaps even civil war. Do not conflate the looters with the peaceful protesters, many of whom actually stood in protective lines to guard businesses from the bad guys. We're being flooded with disinformation even on our local Facebook pages. Last night, anxiety and fear were high based on unfounded claims of local criminal activity. Luckily, as facts came out, this subsided somewhat. Rest assured that our public safety officers monitor social network sites, the internet, and their confidential sources to assess threat levels and prepare for them. I'm not being naive. The situation is volatile. But by passing on false postings and speculation, you're following the playbook of those who are out to destroy us. Trustee Saccatelli will appreciate this next because we share the same alma mater, Resurrection High School. And our motto comes to my mind: Caritas et Veritas, charity and truth. I guess the older I get, the sappier I get. Let's let love